Okay. Good morning, everyone. The Honorable Speaker, Dr. Rasita Fani Sivamanikam from University of Technology Mara. Respectable all participants of this webinar. Welcome to today's webinar, Systematic Review on Food Safety and Supply Chain Risk Assessment Post-Pandemic, that will be conducted by me, Naura Konita, as the moderator for this session. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, I representing Mr. Trias would like to apologize because Mr. Trias has another agenda, so he couldn't attend this session. And now we are moving to the next agenda, which will be the pre-test session for all of the participants. And the link will be shared in the room chat, and all of the participants must fill out the pre-test as the attendance form. And you'll be given 5 minutes to fill out the form. Okay, so the committee has already shared the link in the room chat. For all the participants, you may fill out the form now in the room chat. And maybe while we are waiting for the participants to fill out the pre-test, I would like to say hi to Dr. Rasita. Hello, Dr. Rasita. Good morning.
Hi, morning. Selamat pagi, Eka.
Okay, selamat pagi, Dr. Rasita. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. Dr. Trias is not joining us, is that?
Yes, because he has already has another agenda, so he couldn't join with us today. Okay. But I'm really glad that you are healthy, and also I couldn't wait to listen to your material for today. And are you ready to deliver your presentation for today?
Okay, are we going to start?
Not yet, because we are still waiting for the participants to fill out the pre-test form first.
Okay, sure. Just let me know.
Okay. So I would like to remind all the participants once again to fill out the attendance form or the pre-test form that has been shared by the committees in the room chat as the attendance, and you may fill out the form and you will be given like 5 minutes to fill out the form. Okay.
Ini apa gerbang SKF
Okay, I would like to remind once again for the participants who just joined the session. For all of the participants who just joined the session, you may fill out the attendance form or the pretest form that has already shared by the committees in the room chat, and you will be given 5 minutes to fill out the form. And now, because the pretest session has already over, as I will continue to the next session. And as we all know, during this pandemic era, more people are aware in protecting themselves from illnesses. And in many cases, the protocols already established for food safety were reinforced, such as handling food package or before cooking or eating food. And it is hoped in the post-pandemic scenario to reach a better understanding of the particularities that led to greater care with food hygiene. And moreover, it is expected that the food system will creatively adapt the way meals are served. And from the brief explanation about the topic, we know that this session will be really interesting. And I really hope that you will pay more attention to the speaker. And well, before we invite our speaker, I would like to read her profile first. Okay, for the committees, could you show our speaker profile first? Okay, so I would like to introduce you to our amazing speaker. And her name is Dr. Rashita Fani Sivamanikam, and you has met her before. And she comes from Malaysia, and now she is teaching food chemistry and also instrumental analysis of foods. And we all know from her profile, we all know that she has already achieved a lot of achievement and also has a great achievement and also do a lot of research. Okay, thank you. Okay, since we have such an amazing speaker here, why don't we say hi first to Dr. Rasita? Hello, Dr. Rasita.
Hi, hello, Eka.
Okay, how are you today?
Morning, Miss Chairperson.
Okay, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good too, thank you. And are you ready to deliver your presentation?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you may begin your presentation now.
Okay, I'll share screen first, yeah?
Okay.
Okay, can you see?
Yeah, I can already see your presentation.
Okay, wait, I put it, okay, full screen already, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, okay. Selamat pagi, salam siang to all these participants for Public Health University Airlangga Summer School. We have students also, probably some from my side. So I'm happy to have this invitation from Universitas Airlangga. Thanks for having me once again. I've always been, considered warm to Universitas Airlangga already. A few talks already done for Airlangga, for different faculties and also departments. So for today, I'll talk on the topic given to me. This is a paper that we have written, so systematic review on food safety and supply chain or risk assessment post-pandemic. And this is from Malaysian perspective. So what happened in Malaysia? Okay, so as for the introduction, the outline is I'll give you a brief introduction and what is food safety. And the three W is that what, when, and why, and how it happened, and how this food safety is relevant to the pandemic. Okay, and next is the pandemic effect on food safety, and what is the effect of pandemic, and also its relevance to food supply chain, and how no one has actually forecast this pandemic. So how do we go forward from this in terms of food safety and also supply chain? And also now we have most countries has already declared pandemic transition to endemic situation. So what are the challenges we are going to face on this endemic situation on the food supply chain, and also the safety that we can enforce on the food that we are actually preparing, or the food that we are passing down to the consumers. So in the meantime, while we are considering all this, we are of course also taking into consideration of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal that has been developed in 2015, that is projected up to 2030. So we have to consider the effect of pandemic and also endemic in order to achieve all these SDG goals which we have. Okay, so this is the paper that we have produced along with Dr. Trias and also my student Nurul Aiman, Dr. Aida, and myself from UITM, and Dr. Trias from UNE. So this is a Q2 Scopus Index paper. Okay, so I'll give you a brief introduction. Okay, so I'm sure all of you know what happened and how it happened. So this happened in late December, I think, from Wuhan, the COVID virus that traveled. Okay, and then it traveled all over the world, and it in World Health Organization declared this as a pandemic in March, okay, 11th March. And after that, various countries actually has implemented lockdowns and closure to to also curb the virus from spreading, but it also lead to closure of many economic sectors because the cases were rising. So I'll go backwards first before coming forward, okay? So because of that, a new norm was introduced to all of us, okay, where we were not aware of how to combat this issue. So social distancing, physical distancing were all put in our mind, okay, how to come across this pandemic issue. Okay, so because of this restriction, most companies actually had to cut down and minimize the production and also manufacturing of their products. So it actually caused a lot of shortages and also delay in supplying the goods to the consumer. So this review paper, what we did is actually to review the impact and threats of COVID-19 pandemic to food safety as well as food supply chain, and we focus to Malaysia. Later, I'll talk to how it actually has got challenges to probably Indonesia as well. Okay, so precaution and solution taken by the government was also discussed in this paper, which I'll bring forward to you. Okay, on how to improve and also the situation while managing the pandemic. Okay, so the recent COVID-19 has actually affected many countries. So many countries implemented lockdowns and restrictions for traveling. So in Malaysia, the first case, of course, it was in January. I'm sure in Indonesia as well, probably it has been there since January 2020. So since then, it's already been 2.5 years now since we are in September already. Okay, so but still, it's still there. All right, it's not missing already. So please always be vigilant and take care of ourselves wherever we go. So because of this, in Malaysia, we implemented the movement control order ever since 18th March 2020. Okay, so what it actually cost to the food safety and supply chain? So the MCO, okay, implemented required all business to shut down, okay, with exception to only essential services and also items. So because of this restriction during the MCO, it also had a lot of restriction. For example, Implementation was in public places, limited operating hours for agriculture businesses, travel restriction. Okay, so we only had a 10-kilometer travel radius for all citizens. So this actually impacted the goods that traveled in order to supply the whole nation. Okay, I'm sure it happened across the world as well. So, because of this, social life, education system, and non-essential businesses has to be put on halt, meaning it is a complete standstill. Okay, we can't continue during our normal routine. So, because of that, many companies were able to keep their business going on by allowing their employee to work from home. But the same cannot be applied to most of the food industries because many food companies require their workers to do hands-on work with the food products, especially for smaller businesses. Even large businesses, we have the production going on. So, in order for us to carry on the production, we have to have workers. And with restriction, we have to cut down the number of productions. So COVID-19 has actually caused some effects, such as impacting food safety as well as the food supply chain, okay, with similar impacts found in many countries. So managing the whole system is very, very crucial. So let's look at is food safety in the first place. So, food safety, from what we read as a definition, is the preparation of food that shall not cause any harm because we are preparing it for consumption, human consumption. Okay, it's to consumer because it is when it is eaten according to its intended use. Okay, it can also be described as not only right from consumed. Okay, so right from the prepare, from the handling, from the raw materials, and also up to when the product is complete. Okay, it is already complete as a product. How do we store them in order for it to lower the risk of sickness and which is caused by foodborne illnesses. We do not want this to happen. Okay, why it is important? Okay, because we are protecting consumers from any foodborne diseases, and of course, we want consumption of safe and nutritious food, which will maintain the good health. So this also is also relevant to SDG 3, which is well and health being, well-being, if I'm not health and well-being. Sorry. Okay, and then from this, we help generate body immunity to fight against diseases. So that is why we need a proper diet that can help guarantee that our body is actually strong enough to fight the viruses. Not only COVID-19, it could be any virus or also diseases that we could get. Okay, so what is the impact to food safety of this COVID-19 that has given um, around us? Okay, so as further research was conducted, no study so far has reported that spread of COVID-19 through food products, okay, and the human digestive system. So it is merely an airborne. I'm sure all of you know how it is being transmitted. So the WHO, FAO, and also US FDA has advised that COVID-19 is actually not transmitted by the consumption of food contaminated by the virus. It is very not likely that it does contaminate the food. So because initially, at initial point, many consumers were actually very kaget, okay, takut. Even to buy food, there is a lot of things. I think you can see people with plastics, with mineral bottles, walking all over because they are so worried that even it gets transmitted from food. So this COVID-19, it should be deactivated during cooking as well as under normal pasteurization condition. Okay, so however, even cooked food have the ability to transmit viral diseases if they come in contact with other contaminated food or surfaces. So this is what we need to um, take care of, that we do not want the surface that has been contaminated to contaminate the food. So food safety is still a concern, as this does not rule out the possibility of contamination from other means such as person to person, like how it is being transmitted, or person to object or surfaces. Okay. So, in light of the recent events, food companies are actually responsible for not only ensuring their products are safe from foodborne pathogens, but they must now ensure that they are not exposing their customers and employees to COVID-19. As person to person transmission is the main mode of transmission for COVID-19, so it is the most important that safety and hygiene guidelines are actually implemented and enforced in food industries, more so in light of this pandemic. And there is a great chance of exposure of infection to healthy individual if an infected person handles the food packaging. So even from the package, okay, but when you transfer in the production line, it gets to another person. Okay, that's by touch. So it can contaminate the packaging and give the infected product to a healthy, unassuming customer. So this package can also, if given the time that the virus is still active, it can transmit to another person. So although transmission through surface contact is not common, but there is still possibility of transmission through the packaging material. So it was reported that this COVID-19 virus can remain for a prolonged period in environmental samples, which actually boosts the chance of transmission. If I'm not mistaken, it has got certain hours. Okay, so the viral half-life ranges from 1 to 2 days, depending on the RNA that has been identified on the surface. This one is kind of old reference, I want to say. Okay, but after that there are a lot of references that says this it is available on the surface at least up to 2 days. So although COVID-19 is not foodborne illness, but it's still transmitted during the manufacturing and also processing activities, and also during handling and storage. So this is in Malaysia, how the safety precaution that has been handled by the restaurants. So of course, I'm sure even in Indonesia, this has been taken into consideration, taking the temperatures. You have to sign in, and then you have your app to show where have you been. So you have to check in to all the places. And in restaurants or in food outlets, you have to sit in a distance according to SOPs. That's why you can see the X here. Okay, meaning that there are always a space given so that we do not want people in front of us or beside us to get the virus being transmitted. So how do we ensure food safety? So as what has been mentioned, so there are a few factors that affects food safety in this pandemic, which are personal hygiene of food handlers, as well as the kitchen sanitation. And also we need to add on to sanitization. So personal hygiene means those who are healthcare providers and food practitioners over here. Probably you know that we have to wear our PPEs, personal protective equipments like the bonnets, the masks or gloves, okay, when we work in food industries or when we are preparing food for human consumption. And then we wear clean clothes, and we avoid smoking or eating or coughing and sneezing in the production area. So all this has got an effect on the food that we are producing. And of course, when COVID-19 came, we had to sanitize the production area frequently when ever since we know that some of the workers are being infected. So immediately we carry out sanitization because we do not know where is the area that it is being infected. So to do that, we have to sanitize the whole area. So for kitchen sanitation and sanitization, of course, this is the earlier sanitation that we always keep in mind. So we plan and of the interior design of kitchen should facilitate proper hygiene practices. We clean and also disinfect. We have a disinfection plan, which is always done by the staff. And of course, the staff should be trained on proper sanitation and disinfection of kitchen. In Malaysia, we always, if we are involved in food production, we need to attend a course, kursus pengendalian makanan. So I'm sure in Indonesia also we have that. So we have those training that you have to achieve first before you can start to be in the food industries. And the kitchen utensils and equipments should be cleaned and also sanitized frequently because like what I mentioned earlier, we do not want the person who are infected touch to be transmitted to other persons. So if you notice at the time of pandemic, all right, when the restaurants or food outlets were operating, they always have plastics on the utensils because they want to eliminate the touch transmissions. So kitchen sanitation is actually important for street food vendors and also small scale food industries, which we always overlook, okay? Because this actually could cause they often overlook the transmission mode. And it's important also for the relevant authorities to regularly monitor and supervise these small scale food vendors to ensure that we are complying with the proper food safety practices. And they should provide education and also support system to ensure that these vendors are operating without danger of selling food that are not safe for human consumption. In Malaysia, we have a few cases of these consuming certain type of food product that is not being done in proper hygiene practices that actually affect the consumers. Usually, it happens during the street market ataupun bazaar or the past night market pasar malam. Okay, so it usually happens. So we should provide education so that these small scale businesses are actually taking into consideration of the food safety. And now, okay, what is the effect of COVID-19 and also food supply chain? So let's look what is food supply chain. So the food supply chain is the different processes that occur to bring food from the production until the consumer. So it's from the farm up to the fork. So it's from the right from the even before the farm. Okay, the raw materials needed for the farm until it reaches to us. So the supply chain consists of processes such as agriculture production that happens at the farm, the post-harvest handling, the processing part, the distribution, and also retailing, and lastly, before it reaches us. So there are few stages before it comes to us. And the maintenance of food, functional food supply chain is very important to ensure food can be provided to consumers continuously and also with good nutrition. So this is what I mentioned earlier. So if we see it in a nutshell, it is actually in a circular motion. Okay, so right from the grower, okay, and then it goes to the processor, goes to the manufacturer, and regulator if it needs to being checked on the regulation part, and then it's being shipped out to across the country, and also probably being exported, and then it reaches the retailer before it comes to us. Okay, so it when it is being transported for export market, we also need to ensure that we meet the requirement for the country that we are producing our products. So remember, I mentioned that even before we go to the farm, we need to ensure that the materials that we need is sufficient enough. So during the pandemic, this had a lot of issue for the operation of the food and agriculture agriculture business operations, because due to closure of non-essential businesses, we had difficulties to obtain the raw materials that actually eventually lead to having the raw materials, for example, the seeds, the sawdust that is relevant to the wood industry. Wood industry is not considered as what we call it essential services. So we had very, very limited sawdust, which usually being used mainly for mushroom industries as a substrate for growing. And of course, the pesticide, which is a very what we call it very common thing that is needed in the agriculture practices, but we had limitations of pesticides and fertilizers because of the closure of the non-essential businesses and also the feed businesses. Okay, so feed, right down, for example, for the poultry that we have or any livestock had to be on restricted movements. So we always had these issue during the last 2 years pandemic. And another thing is that the limitations of machinery repair shops, and of course the limited operations of processing factories. So all these lead to limitations in the agriculture and also the food supply chain that probably we didn't hear of. Okay, so many countries, including Malaysia, have implemented lockdown and partial lockdowns periodically. So it didn't happen a continuously, but it happened periodically. So in order for us to curb the rising of the infection and of course the deaths. So one of the biggest impacts is the restriction of movements. So because of this, it caused many disruption to the supply chain. Okay, for example, in Malaysia, the initial movement control order restricted the travel movement, which further enforced the roadblocks all over the country. In order for you to pass through the roadblocks, you have to get a police letter. Okay, so because of these limitations and also limitations of only traveling between 10-kilometer radius, so the shipment of consumer goods like the agriculture crops had put on hold. Okay, it has had a very tremendous effect. And during the first few weeks of this implementation, many food supply chain, especially those in urban areas, did not come through the urban area, not from the urban areas, did not come to the cities. So because of this. And one of the impacts to the supply chain is because of the restriction of the movement. So because of this movement, what it has impacted is that due to the social distancing and physical distancing, we had lack of manpower in the processing and supply chains. And because of that, they have loss of job security. And during these 2 years timeline, many of them has actually shifted job. Okay, because to upkeep of course we have families, so in order to feed our families, we probably thought of another job that could sustain the living expenses. That's why probably we have, when the food industry is ongoing now, many of the industry have problem because they have to train back their employees because of this, an impact on the production and operational activities of a company. So the manufacturing of products is disrupted because of lack of raw materials and also lack of employees, and also because of the restriction that has been enforced, and disruption in post-harvest activities that lead to wastages in huge amounts. Fresh produce such as vegetables, meat, and fish, which many of us did not think that it could lead to this way. And further, what is the effect of is okay of this impact? We had less customers and purchasing power. Okay, because of quarantine implementations, a lot of people disuruh duduk di rumah. So bila duduk di rumah, we could not go out and buy things. Although we had online transactions, which was heavily being conducted, but the normal way of purchasing actually reduced. Okay, the normal way that we go to market, those in the market, they do not have online medium. We go to the other online medium that we purchase, but those people are actually affected. So those companies and businesses with they struggle, and they had difficulty in covering utility bills, rental fees, and also worker salaries. And they had problem to stay afloat because of this, and also probably lead to closure of businesses that they had problem also to come up after the pandemic. At this time, this point of time when it has been announced as endemic, they have problem to come up again because of all these issues. Okay, I'm just going to share some of the what we call it articles that was very very heartbreaking to see, right? So pekebun buah-buahan terjejas teruk because of COVID-19, because lorry drivers were scared to drive. Like what I mentioned is because of the implementation of the travel restriction, and also because when they travel, they need to get police letters because of the roadblocks. So they do not want to go through all this, all right? And also because of this a huge amount of surplus, so ada banyak, okay? Storage facility not enough, and they had to what we call it, just throw it. Okay, so it's very heartbreaking to see all this. And sorry, and the next is this is for what we call it, even in the farm, bekalan sayuran dijangka terjejas because there's not enough machines, not enough workers and growers to carry out their normal operations. So the drying and spoilage of vegetables were happening in the farm, and lack of manpower to even harvest them. They were scared to even go to the farm. So we had a lot of issues of even closure of markets because people were shifting from normal conventional way of purchasing to online medium. So online medium, normal pasar tani, market, pasar biasa, we don't have all these what we call it online purchasing type. So they had to close the certain businesses. And also rugi RM 1,000 sehari because sayur tidak terjual. Okay, produce not marketed, and they had a huge amount of losses even for the farmers. These farmers are not those that high-end farmers. Okay, so they had to do something in order for it to reach the consumers. And Pekebun Sayu Cameron Highlands, it is actually a highland area that does growing of certain types of vegetables and fruits. So they had kerugian, okay, losses up to RM 1 juta sehari, so which is a huge amount, okay, and because of less sales and of wholesale markets, and like what I mentioned, less people going to there, okay, and long transport journey, so they do not want to go through all these hassles, and of course because of the roadblocks, and they had the storage issue, because they had the crops coming in and in and in, less people buying, so they have to store their produce for very long time. So because of that, most of it being what we call it, thrown out, okay, and due to these issues, some actually increase the price, okay, the farmers or growers, they increase the price due to claiming climate factor, which also came in at the similar timing where pandemic happened. So terpaksa naikkan harga sayur, and some of them even took advantage of making profits, jual telur RM 1 sebiji, which is not right. Okay, so they had some authorities and also issues going on. Okay, so all these are in 2020s. All these paper cuttings are in 2020s. So how do we now go way forward from this? Okay, so as a what pandemic caused us, it has brought some effects to the food safety and also the supply chain. Although it is said that it is not a foodborne virus, it is still important to maintain proper food safety protocols to the food industry. And of course, this is for this review that we did. It is to highlight that maintaining good personal hygiene of handlers is utterly important in food industries, and completion of the vaccination dosage is vital to achieve the herd immunity. I'm sure that now, even in Indonesia, we have achieved the complete vaccination dosages. Just that now we have to increase to booster vaccinations as well. So apart from that, it is also significant to point that the maintenance of the kitchen sanitation is also essential during this pandemic, and now at this time where we still have cases ongoing. Okay, we always forget, lupa, COVID sudah tak ada. Okay, no, it's still there, it's still around us. We can't see, don't forget, and don't get carried away with it. Okay, so this is probably due to the possibility of the transmission of COVID-19 through the food handlers as well as by food packaging materials. And due to the strict lockdowns as well as many protocols involving social distancing and travel restrictions, the food supply chain has seen some negative effects in light to this pandemic. And some of these effects include shortages in labor, which has caused disruption to the supply chain, as well as lack of distribution of food products to the consumers. Now, there are no official guidelines that exist to detect the presence of COVID virus on surfaces as well as public places. So probably we suggest that relevant bioanalytical tools such as method of tracing and detecting these virus in the environment where food is processed, manufactured, and also handled should be developed. Okay, to see whether it is there or not, because at the moment we always what we do in the food industry is that we sanitize the whole area because we can't see it, where is it. And for current situation, the challenges that we have after going forward, all right, after going forward of pandemic, now endemic is here, but we have a lot of other issues apart from just the pandemic by itself. Okay, so now we are going on a global scale, food supply chain issues, because of there are some political issues as well. All right. For example, there is these global wheat supply shortages. All right, and of course because of there are food shortages and Ukraine's crop headaches, we call it, persist. Okay, it's still there. Okay, because of the Ukraine war, and we have a lot of shortages. Okay, I've listed down here popcorn in the US, lettuce in the Australia, onions and salami in Japan, and beer in Germany. But when we relate it to us in Asia, we have expensive and also limited trade of pesticides. So because of that, in Malaysia, we have issues of with palm oil. So we have increase in palm oil products, okay, increase in prices, and also big shortage of sugar in Philippines, okay, because of the pesticides and also fertilizer issues, and also because of these, for example, this is a very big um, what we call it, agriculture hub, okay, Mykolaiv, but due to the war, a lot of agriculture produce were not allowed to even travel out of this hub. Okay, usually this is it also supplies the wheat. Okay, so it eventually give effect to the global supply chain because they were not allowed to go even out of this hub to what we call it, to give to export markets and also to supply in domestic markets. So now it is had reduced, but they have like 1 year supply being in the storage facility. So now when their harvesting is going on as usual, they has kept their supply, but there is lack of what we call it, storage facility, because their existing previous produce were not going out of the hub even to the domestic market, export markets. Then the existing harvest is still there, so they have lack of storage facilities. Okay, so it is resolving slowly, but it has impacted all over the world, the food supply chain. And with this, the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, have taken steps to continually do analysis, and they produce reports, okay, to upkeep the SDG that they have already implemented. Apart, I mean, like in apart from being involved in pandemic, in political war, and in other global effect, so they produce this report periodically to help those countries, especially the third world countries, to what we call it, to combat the food security issue that is largely being spoken out now, and also to maintain the nutrition and how we produce nutritious food to supply our consumers. And in the meantime, at the same time, we also have this issue. Okay, US FDA handles poultry contamination due to salmonella, so they have to we call it, have a special task force to do to combat this issue as well. So I'm sure similar to Malaysia, in Indonesia, we also have issues with the livestock, what we call it, the stock to meet the domestic market, and also to import our commodities. Due to this, because certain countries, they tend to keep their stocks for their domestic markets first. And this one is okay. So you can see that what is Malaysia's food security status at the moment. We have supply-demand mismatch. It is insufficient, I would say, because of this disruption. So for example, here we have production of vegetables being met is 44% of domestic requirements. The rest is all coming in from outside, means we import. Means if we compare 2019, 2020 up to now, the import market is actually gradually increasing because of this. Okay, it does not meet the domestic market, and fruits it just meets up to 78%, liquid milk up to 63%, beef production is very low, production of meat, eggs, fish, and pork is of only 90%. So the rest we still depend on our neighboring countries. Okay, even for our other agriculture crops like chili, cabbage, sweet potatoes, and coconut, some are listed here. Okay, some are not. And this is the issue in Indonesia. I took this, meaning the world food prices has jumped by almost 13% in March 2022. So this is being quoted by the finance minister. Okay. What it actually causes is that it gives the impact on poor families. And this price hike also happens for the imported goods because all the issues that I have mentioned, even because of the global supply chain and also the food shortages. So the traders tend to increase the price of the imported goods. And each country have to continuously import the goods because in order to sustain the domestic market needs. But only catch is that it has price hike. So, but in order for us to continue our life, we have to purchase or we have to turn to another produce. So with that, thank you very much. Thanks once again to One for inviting me for this summer program. And if there's any question, I am free to answer.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Asita, for your inspirable presentation. And from Dr. Asita's explanation, we can conclude that COVID-19 has caused some effect to the food industry, and such as impacting food safety as well as the food supply chain, with similar impact found in many countries. And to solve it, it is important to have good personal hygiene of handlers in utterly important in food industries, and complementation of the vaccination dosage is vital to achieve herd immunity. Isn't that right? Okay. And I'm sure that a lot of participants want to ask a lot of questions too. And now, as we come to the questions and answer session, if you have any questions for our speakers today to Dr. Rashita, you may type your question in the room chat and I'll read it for you. Or maybe if you want to ask directly to Dr. Rashita, you may raise your hand and unmute yourself after I call your name. Okay, so if for all of the participants, if you have any questions, feel free to write it down now in the room chat and I'll read it for you. Or maybe you want to ask directly to Dr. Ashita, feel free to raise your hand and I'll call your name. After that, you may unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, so while waiting, I am really interested in this issue since I've learned about it too in my previous course. And I'm really curious about a thing. Food safety and security issues such as food contamination can be occurred due to disastrous situations, like including the natural disasters and also pandemic just like now, and etc. And in your opinion, what are the best precautions to address these food safety issues to fulfill the dietary requirements of the affected community?
Eka, can you repeat again? Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, so I'm really interested in your topic about the food safety. And since I've learned about it too in my previous course, I would like to ask a question. Isn't that okay for me to ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. We know that we know that wait, we know that food safety and security issues such as food contamination can be occurred due to disaster situations, like including natural disasters and also pandemic situations like now, and etc. And in your opinion, what are the best precautions to address this food safety issues such as the dietary requirements of
Data sebelum ngomong. Ini tuh jumlah mahasiswa.
okay.
Someone else is talking. Okay, Naman, I think I got it. How to meet the diet requirement,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, for certain communities. Okay, that is why, like what I mentioned, if it is small scale producers, they do not do these like how we do in the lab analysis and profiling and characterization of the product that we are producing. But when it comes to in food big in food industries, large scale industries, we do the analysis and we characterize how much of for example, how much of potassium in it, how much of calcium in it, and we put it in our labeling requirement. If it is small scale, usually they just do a very simple label and compress as a carbohydrate. Okay, they don't do a very in-depth characterization. So it is us as a researcher that we have to educate not only the large scale food industry producers, but we should also try to educate all the food producers to have these diet requirements labeling. Okay, because of these labels is how we are going to um, what we call it, teach our consumers that, oh, okay, this food has got this much of for example, calcium. So in those community that has calcium deficiencies, this is what the food that you take, not merely depend on supplements. Okay, because we know that per day we have a certain amount of requirement to be met. Okay, at times, probably the supplement that we are taking, of course, it is being extracted and being labeled as this is the amount that is in each tablet, but how much it is being consumed by us and how much is the availability after it in the gut in the body system, it is still not sure. Sometimes we also tend to take vitamin C tablets. Okay, those tablets at times the requirement that we need per day is such, okay, but it could exceed the daily requirement because we are supplementing with our food as well. So we know that maybe per day is 1000 mg, all right, but we are also consuming food. But if you depend totally on the what we call it, on the tablet, then that is fine. But when we are supplementing, then there would be excess in vitamin C, for example, so that could lead to other problems. I answered you.
Okay, yeah, now I get it. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the answer, Dr. Asita. And yeah, we already had one question in the chat room from Bianca from Universitas Gajah Mada. Okay, so Bianca asked about, to you, Are there certain recommendations from doctors on how to maintain the availability of quality and hygienic food in this era where there is still a COVID-19 virus, where there are still restrictions on activities in society? What is your opinion?
Okay, I think Bianca, thanks for the question, Bianca. I think you are asking whether there's certain recommendation from doctors. Um, I I am not sure whether doctors are doing this recommendation or not, but what my perception and from my own experience is that um, probably the preach of doctors, meaning to educate the patients, is still at a minimal level on availability of the quality and hygienic food. Okay, doctors, their task is to what we call it, to treat the patients. Okay, but yes, they have to educate their patients on when you get sick. After that, when you go home, how you should what we call it, how you should consume your food, how you should be well, maintain your safety. But the important thing that should be educated to the consumers is by the food scientists. Okay, so those food scientists is the one should work along with doctors to educate our public, which quite not done by our food scientists, to educate the public on, for example, very simple issues. For example, on how do you store food when you purchase them, how do you maintain the hygiene in food, and what you need to look for when you are purchasing your food. Okay, all these things should be done by food scientists, but because of poor interactions with what we call it public, that is what leads to them uh, being not very thoroughly being educated. So they, when you depend totally on doctors, you may get only knowledge on how to manage yourself in order for you to get well. Okay, but we consume food on a daily basis. Okay, it is one of the most important thing that we do every day. No matter sakit tak sakit, you have to eat. Okay, but how do you get this properly, whether the quality is good, whether the hygiene is good in time of pandemic? How do we get that? We need a lot of food scientists to interact. To I think we are doing quite a good job, even in Malaysia. The Ministry of Health is doing that, but apart from that, okay, apart from that, even food scientists should be educating the public, because we want to create more awareness on even what certain type of food that is good for what. Okay, even that needs educating and need more awareness. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ashita, for the answer, and for Bianca for the questionnaire. Is that clear, or do you want to ask another question for Dr. Ashita? Okay, so it is clear. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we have another questions that has already sent in my direct message from Natalia. So she asked about, to prevent contamination of food product, we need to use sterilized tools and also ingredients. But this method is quite expensive, and so many home food industry will pass this stage. And because if it done, the food will cost more expensive and will reduce the sales. And for example, students are usually just bring small amount of money to buy food because of the economic issues, and she thinks this case is happening in many developing countries like Indonesia. And how to overcome it? Okay, for Dr. Ashita, you may answer the question.
Meaning how to overcome what once again?
Okay, so she asked about when she goes to for the students who has like economics issues because because of the economic issues that she only bring a small amount of money and she has to buy some food for from outside, and we know that it is really expensive since they use like since they have to like sterilize the tools and also ingredients, so it can make the food more expensive because of that method. And she asked about the opinion how to overcome that problems.
Meaning sterilization.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, but of course, we understand that students have got limited funds. Okay, but when we talk about food safety, it is very important that we need to do this sterilization because we want to make sure that our food is safe. But when we talk about having limited amount of money to buy certain type of food, I think we can always what call it stick to real food rather than go to supplements, go to those expensive products. Maybe you can think you can look for products or food that is of real food. Okay, always because we know when we are preparing our food from the real food, it is of safe. Okay, for sterilization, if it is involving processing for the food industry, it is very important. We cannot omit that because we are preparing for a safe food. So it is not wise for us to omit that. So as a student, probably we opt for a cheaper food, but again, we have to make sure those food are safe for consuming.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rashida. And it is also important. So I take the important note. I took the important note from what you've explained for the students because we already have a lot of students here. Since you listen to Dr. Rashita's explanation, you can take the alternative to choose the more cheaper food and make sure that it is safe and also healthy. Okay, for Natania, is that clear? Or you want to ask another question? Okay, so Natania has sent me another question for you. She has. Okay. Okay, for Natania, maybe you can unmute yourself and maybe you want to ask questions directly to Dr. Ashita, and maybe I will help you to translate it to Dr. Ashita.
Apa boleh? Saya boleh faham.
Okay.
Okay. Jadi I
Saya
have
cuba faham.
experience.
Okay, so Natania, could you please turn your camera on so we could spotlight you?
Okay.
Spotlight.
I have experience in watching meatball seller. In Indonesia is pedagang pentol.
Okay, meatball sellers. Okay.
Yes. Jadi pedagang pentol ini kan ada kuahnya. Kuahnya itu, nah waktu ngangetin pentolnya ini, kan pentol ini sebenarnya diplastik kan, misalkan dari kulkas, itu di plastik, terus dimasukin langsung ke dalam kuahnya ini tadi. Berarti kan kita selama ini kalau makan pentol yang dijual abang pentol, itu juga mengandung mikroplastik gitu. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so Dr. Sita, do you get it? Do you get the question?
Okay, I need your help, Eka.
Okay, okay. So,
Plastic,
okay,
ada micro.
yeah,
Ulang balik.
yeah. So, okay, I will help you to translate what Natania has said. So she has an experience. She experienced about buying some meatballs, bought some meatballs in the meatball sellers in the on the street food, and we know that the meatball sellers usually just put the meatball and also the hot soup in the plastic. So it is like common thing in Indonesia that a meatball sellers put the hot soup in the plastic. So it may contain a microplastics, isn't it? Isn't it, Natania? Is that right? Okay, so it could.
Yes.
Is it? Saya tanya, is it you mean Natanya? The bisphenol A transmission to the food, or like chemicals coming out from the plastic to the soup? Is it like that?
Ya jadi gini Kak, misalkan ini kan dari kulkas nih, satu plastik isi pentol tahu kayak gitu-gitu. Terus waktu ngangetinnya itu kan harusnya mungkin dibuka dulu kan plastiknya Kak, terus dimasukin cemplung-cemplung gitulah ya. Nah tapi itu enggak, langsung sama plastiknya itu dicelupin ke kuahnya. Berarti kan mengandung plastik gitu.
Okay, I see. So the meatballs, the frozen food of like the meatballs or maybe just tofu, they usually like wrap it in like a thin plastic, isn't it? And they put in freezer. And after you freeze it, after the frozen food is going to be cooked, they have to take off the plastic wrap.
So ini tidak keluarkan plastik, terus celup dalam air.
Yeah, they just like put
That's
it
totally
in
wrong.
water. Yeah.
That's totally wrong. Salah itu.
Yeah, and what is
Tidak
your opinion
boleh.
on that?
That's why I said earlier. Remember, I said we need to support and educate the small scale vendors. You know, because when we work in the food industry in Malaysia, we have to go through a course, okay, to educate them on how to handle the food properly, even cross contamination when you are storing simple things, cross contamination when you're storing your food in the fridge, even that is being taught in those course. So but when it is for street vendors, you tak perlu go through all these courses. So like what Natania mentioned, that's why you do this kind of things, you know, where even opening simple things you don't do it, you know, but it is actually not proper. So that's why we as food scientists, we need to always educate even the simple things that happens among the food vendors that can actually cause problem. In Malaysia, we have a lot of cases. Usually, these cases happen masa bazar Ramadan, because there's a lot of new people doing this just for probably money. Okay, they do not know how to ensure safe food for consumption. Okay, some of it tidak sedap. Okay, itu tak apalah, tidak sedap. But some of it is not safe how they handle, because they need to prepare a large amount of food for to be sold, right? You don't do food for small amount, 10 orang, tidak. Okay, so when you do for large amount of food and you do not have that what we call it, food safety knowledge, then your food is not safe. So sebab tu in Malaysia, usually people are always have issue lepas makan in Bazar Ramadan, in Pasar Ramadan, you will have issue poisoning, you will have issue of vomiting. Okay, usually it's food poisoning. Okay, why? Because of this. So again, I would like to say it is the food scientist's role to educate these small scale vendors, because sometimes we even consumers, we try to help them, because kita nak tolong them. We know they are not of good economy living. Okay, we want to help them. We buy their food, but when they do not have enough knowledge on how to produce safe food, then we, the one yang beli, itu masalah. Okay, so kalau Natania next time tengok this is happening, maybe you can just tell, maaf Pak, salah ini. Okay.
Okay. Okay, Natania, is that clear?
Yes, okay. Thank you, Doctor.
All right.
And
Okay.
thank you, Kak.
Okay, thank you to Natania and also Dr. Ashita. Yeah, I've never experienced about it before, and this is like kind of new, hearing from Natania about the food problem. And yeah, it is a big problem for us too, since yeah, we know that food safety is really important, and a lot of people still don't know about it, and it is really important for us to educate the people. Okay.
So those students who are studying food science is actually those are the one you can start educating those. I mean, we start from home. Okay, sometimes we even see even our moms don't do the right way. We can start educating our moms. Then if we see in the shop, in the street market, we can just tell them, "Ah, ini salah." You can just say,
Yeah,
"Ah,
yeah, that's right. Because the big action take a small action take from the small action, and it is start from
yeah,
ourselves.
yes, yes."
Okay, thank you so much, because the Q&A session has already over, and we know that a lot of participants would also like to ask a question. Maybe you can feel free to reach Dr. Ashita in her email. And well, while we are moving to the next agenda, which will be a post-test session. Before that, we will take a picture for all of you, and for all the participants, you may turn your camera on first. And okay, so for those who hasn't turned the camera on, you may turn your camera on now. And for all of the participants who's in charge to take a picture, feel free to take a picture, and time and screen are yours. Okay, so we have 11 slides here. Wow, a lot of participants has joined us today.
Yes, thank you. Those who joined today.
Yeah, because
I can see some from Malaysia too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have already seen a participant from UITM, isn't that right?
Yeah, yeah. I have some of my students as well.
I see. Okay, so welcome to today's webinar. Okay, thank you for participating. Okay, for all the participants, you may turn your camera on now, and for the committee who's in charge.
Okay, okay, everyone. I'll count to 3. 1, 2, 3 for the first slide. Okay, thank you. Second slide. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Next slide. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Slide 4. Thank you. Slide 5. And the last slide. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, now and for all of the for the committees who's in charge to share the post-test link, could you please share the link in the room chat? Okay. So, because the link has already shared for all of the participants, you may fill out the post-test first. You may access the link in the room chat, and you will be given for about 5 minutes to do the post-test. So it is a must for the participants to fill out the forms, and make sure you have already filled out the form, the post-test form. Okay, maybe while we are waiting. Okay, maybe while we are waiting for the participants to fill out the post-test, I would like to give certificates for Dr. Rashita. Okay, so this is your certificate. Thank you so much for Dr. Rashita because for your amazing presentation and also the interesting materials about food safety. So this is like a small appreciation. This is kind of appreciation from us for.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so for the committees, could you please take a picture for
Okay, I'll take a picture. 1, 2, 3. Okay, once more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we finally come to the end of this webinar. And before I close the webinar, I would like to take a conclusion from what the speaker has presented. So from Dr. Rashita's explanation, we can conclude that COVID-19 has caused some impact to the food industry, such as impacting food safety as well as the food supply chain, with similar impact found in many countries. And to solve it, it is important to have good personal hygiene of handlers in utterly important in food industries, and completion of the vaccination dosage is vital to achieve herd immunity. Okay, so I would like to say thank you to Dr. Rashita for your amazing presentation. And I also would like to give a big applause to our speaker for today. Please give a big applause to our speaker today. Thank you so much, Dr. Rashita, for your amazing presentation and very insightful presentation. And I also would like to say thank you to all of the participants for the very active participation. And finally, give applause for the speaker and for you all.
Thank you so much, Miss Chairperson. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me here. And also thanks for all the attendees, participants, the summer school program. And thanks for listening up to now. Thank you once again.
Okay, we also would like to say thank you to Dr. Rashita because for your participation in this webinar and for your insightful material. And it's such an honor for us to have you here in this webinar. Thank you so much. And well, this is the end of our webinar. As the moderator, I would like to say thank you to the amazing speakers and all of the participants for coming here today. And I also would like to apologize if there were mistakes during webinar. And thank you so much. Good morning and have a nice day. See you in another occasion.
Universitas Airlangga grows together in synergy with other top Indonesian universities to create a positive academic environment in its campuses. Universitas Airlangga is situated near to the public facilities such as sports centers, shopping centers, hospitals, police stations, and other public places which greatly support the educational process. The main campuses are located near to the city center of Surabaya, the vibrant city that also allows Universitas Airlangga to pay attention on its greenery. It is shown by an extensive concern on public parks and cleanliness. It creates a comfortable and refreshing atmosphere for the students during their studies. Despite living in modern and advanced city, students of Universitas Airlangga always uphold humanistic values and live in harmony in the surrounding communities. The students also make positive contribution to the communities. For its contribution to the world, Universitas